Thank you, Mr. Chair. I call the Education and Libraries Committee to open, and we have some wonderful guests today from the Schenectady City School District, and I'm going to let you each introduce yourself if that's all right, and then you can get started with your presentation.
Good evening, Aníbal Soler, Superintendent for Schenectady City Schools.
Good evening, Carlos Cotto, Assistant Superintendent of Innovation and Community Engagement.
Dr. Khan?
Dr.
Come. Could you just hit the button?
There you go. Do it again.
So good evening. Dr. Carlos M. Cotto Jr., Assistant Superintendent of Innovation, Equity, and Engagement for Schenectady.
Kayla Ambezi, Community School Coordinator for Schenectady City School District.
Ryan Williams, Community School Coordinator for Schenectady City School District.
So welcome to this body. We're very excited to hear from you, especially about this new initiative. We're all wondering, so I'm just going to give you the floor. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So thank you. Good evening once again. Thanks for having us here. We're excited about the Community Schools Initiative, and Dr. Cotto and his team are going to get into the weeds a little bit around it. I just wanted to kind of give a general overview. Been here now my second year here in Schenectady, and one of the things that was really observable right away was how rich in resources the community was, Schenectady. But what I noticed was a disconnect. A lot of silos, a lot of lack of engagement between the district and maybe some of the community agencies, community-based organizations. And so this concept of community schools really forces the conversation to make the school the hub for everything around that community. And so I always tell people, you know, when they say, well, what is community schools? What is that concept? And Carlos and his team will get into that more specifically. But the reality is, where's the one place that anybody knows where to find in their neighborhood? It's typically the schoolhouse. Regardless of if you can speak English or not, everyone can kind of get to school, right? And everyone looks to school to help solve a lot of our social issues. You know, whether we agree with that or not, everyone looks to school to help fill the gaps, whether it's reading, literacy, numeracy, food, clothing. People look at the school as the hub, the connector. And so this concept of community schools is really around how do we make the school the hub, and how do we change the narrative of Schenectady schools? And so the hope is that we bring folks together, and the key word for me is unity. So community schools. And how do we unify our efforts on servicing our most vulnerable kids and families, and really use the school as the beacon of hope for that neighborhood? And so I'll hand it over to Dr. Cotto and his team. They'll kind of give you an overview, high-level view of what the work is, what we've started. But we started small intentionally, and our hope is that maybe after tonight, there's other insertion points from the county with our schools on how to address the whole child, whole family approach to school improvement. So thank you.
So good evening, and thank you again for this opportunity. Before we get started, I want to just anchor our work as it relates to our school vision, our district vision, our tagline and values. Excellence in teaching and learning, equity, engagement, and efficiencies is what we focus on as a district, and that's our overall vision. Our district tagline is everyone counts, everyone learns, and as we go through this presentation, you're going to see the synergy of this work as it relates to community schools. And then our organizational values lie within equity, collaboration, and learning. We are anchored in 4 pillars, and these pillars you'll see through our community school model as well, and how they're connected. But our first pillar is student and graduate success. And our overall supports as it relates to this community school model is building that foundation so that our students see their opportunities as they then transition from elementary to middle and high school and off to college and career. Passionate people. Through this work, as we launched this back in June of last year, we had over 100 partners attend our Liberty Church kind of launch to community schools. And now we've got over 150 that have, you know, every time that we have a monthly meeting, we have others that have interest in participating and being part of this work. So, you know, as the soup shared, the synergy within our community, the resources that lie within this community are great. And the goal here is to connect these dots and see how we can kind of provide these services, not only to our students, but our families and our community as a whole. Partnerships, family and community involvement is a key piece to this work as well. And as we continue to navigate and work with our community, we look to put these pieces together and continue to support our families. And then the efficient systems. You know, as the soup shared around silos and just, you know, we're coming in fairly new, so looking to see how we can bring individuals together and partner to kind of do this work for our families. Our 4 pillars, and before that, I mean, we anchor, and I'm sure you've seen in our community as a whole, Schenectady Rising. We truly believe in this, and as we continue to do this work, not just in this community school model, but many other initiatives that we've kind of launched within the last year and a half. We did provide a folder that has our spotlight from last year, which kind of speaks to some of those highlights. And we're continuing to do this work. I think as we continue to share what we're doing, we're also looking to see how we can continue to strengthen partnerships and build upon that from one meeting to the other. The community school, I think, was shared a minute. It's the beacon of hope. It's the hub within a community that's driven by that community and their overall needs. So when we look at what is a community school, it's really the one-stop shop. The one-stop shop not only for our families, but those members within that community that provides all the resources. And if we can't provide them within that school, we look to provide them within that community. So we're navigating spaces that we may not be able to fill within our own buildings as it relates to parent centers, as it relates to mobile clinics, all these particular pieces. We're trying to really exhaust what we can provide within the building, but then on top of that, what can we provide within that community as a whole to remove the barriers of what families may have just in getting to locations and having those things kind of sit right within their community as a whole. After-school programming, and I'll speak to those pillars, which will kind of really highlight how this all kind of wraps itself in this model. That our first pillar within the community school model is integrated student supports. So this speaks of clinics from dental, social, emotional well-being for our students, trying to figure out ways, not figure out, but trying to partner within our community to see how we can leverage the resources that are within our community and bring those resources into the building, but also build those relationships within our community where we can hand off our families to reputable community members that can support families. So gone are the days of saying, I'm gonna send you to Mr. Williams, and then you come back a month later, yeah, you're gonna send me to Mr. Williams again, and we haven't connected on the supports and the resources that we needed. So we're being intentional on how we bring our partners together and really trying to solidify a relationship, build on that trust, connect those dots so that when we start to provide those supports and resources to our family, we know that we're providing them to partners that are truly invested in this overall mission and vision. Expanded enrichment learning time and after-school programming. Right now, not only within our community school model, but as a district, we're providing a minimum of 3 hours of after-school programming across all of our schools. Within this particular model, there's additional supports and resources to expand that particular work, along with weekend programs as well. And these programs are not just for our students, but also for our families and those members within that community, where families can come together, break bread together on a Saturday, learn some things based on the connections that we have within the community to build upon some of that overall work. We also have parent liaisons that also leverage that support, and we're kind of empowering them and providing them with professional development opportunities to help build around that connection. They're the face between what's taking place in the building to what's going on in our community, and the goal there is to help to strengthen that relationship and rebuild that trust that families may not have at this current time. Active family and community engagement, so I spoke of that before I got to that particular slide, but again, it's just trying to rebuild that particular piece, holding events within the community to engage our families, bringing our partners to those events so that families get a sense of what's available within our community as a whole, and ultimately making sure that we find ways to close all those gaps and those challenges that our families have. And again, not just for their students, but for themselves. You know, I can speak, my mother and my father, you know, for all the right reasons, did not graduate from high school to raise me. The goal here is how do we now provide that information early on so that now those parents that are coming in, dropping off their kindergartner, now see the resources that we have, and ultimately now we find career opportunities, re-engage, motivate them to fulfill their dreams. And then at the end of the day, graduating with the GED and having your kindergartner or your first year student, student in first grade, seeing you walk that stage is inspiring. But not only that, also connecting them to the resources that we have within the community. And we've been doing a lot of that work with our youth development as well as our youth employment, and again, building those overall connections. And last is the collaborative leadership and practices as a whole. And again, this is the relationships. This is the relationships that we're strengthening within our own schools, strengthening within the district, but then also reaching out to the community and strengthening it within our community as a whole. Typical program components, I highlighted some of those particular pieces. After school, before and after school programming, Saturday programs, summer enrichment. We do provide a pretty extensive summer program for our students across the district, 4 weeks. This past year, we serviced close to 1,500 students, which is about 300 more than we've serviced in previous years. Our parent and family engagement, we've expanded that. We went from having parent liaisons in positions of 400 hours for the week, or not the week, I'm sorry, 400 hours for the year. With the support of the superintendent and the board, we've moved all of our parent liaisons into full-time positions, working 40 hours a week, engaging within our families, and again, rebuilding that trust within the community as a whole. Adult and continuing ed is another big piece. So as I shared earlier, at the end of the day, if we can provide these opportunities early enough, not only for our students, but our families, then we change the overall trajectory, not only of our students, but our families within our community as a whole. The medical, dental, those wraparound services, whole child, whole family, whole community, are key pieces, and those are some of the pieces that we'll discuss later as it relates to those needs within our community. Early childhood, and then the overall community and economic development. As we kind of instill these kind of opportunities with our families and our community, we start to see that trajectory change. What makes a community school different? And we have coordinators that support this work within the building. We do needs assessments. We kind of triangulate what's going on in the building as it relates to attendance, as it relates to overall engagement. We expand that after-school programming and find ways to truly connect our students to their interests, to ultimately build around that overall important piece, which is their education. So I truly believe that when you go to school based and you have things that are truly to your interest as an individual, you're then motivated to take advantage of what might be taking place after school. But then at that point, we then are able to leverage the most important piece, which is their overall academic piece. So as we've transitioned and we launched this back in June, we've now established an advisory. Within this work, we've identified 5 elementary schools within our community as a whole. First one being Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which is one particular school, Hamilton, Page, Van Corlear, and William Kane Elementary School. These 5 schools were identified strategically within the district. Many of them cover about 80% of our community as a whole. We did look at data as it related to overall performance. We looked at data as it related to poverty. We looked at data as it relates to overall kind of the violence and things that are taking place within those neighborhoods, and then the resources that have been provided to those particular schools. And as we now partner with our community partners, we look to now provide those resources that may have not been available within those particular buildings across all 5. And again, as we move in this particular model, it's not just focused on those 5, because if we have the supports and resources within the community, then this model serves our district as a whole. We have some partners that are working across all of our buildings based upon their overall supports and resources and what they can provide for us. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Kayla and then Ryan.
Thank you. So our current focus for our community schools, academic achievement of all of our students, increasing their attendance and engagement, as well as overall family engagement, different enrichment opportunities both during the school day and after school and on weekends. Student and family health, so addressing that medical, dental, mental health, and vision care for not just our students, but our families as a whole. Access to services for our students and families, so access to public assistance, access to housing resources, everything to meet the overall needs of the family so that our students can come to school ready to learn. Extended learning time, so that before and after school programming piece, as well as the STEAM camps that we're going to be running during our February break coming up and April break, as well as summer enrichment. And currently for our February STEAM camp, we are at about 550 students across 11 of our elementary schools to come in on their break to do some STEAM work. Okay, so our current partners that we work with right now that are in all of our 5 identified elementary schools, the Boys and Girls Club of Schenectady, they are currently providing after-school programming for some of our community schools, which extends that extended learning time until 6 p.m., where our students are receiving also snack and dinner before they go home. We work with Justice for Orphans, or Care Portal. They are identified in 2 of our schools right now. That is Page Elementary and Kane. And what they do is basically meet the needs of our school and our students. So anything from laundry detergent to a couch. If our families need it, they can reach out to the school and put a request in. And the Care Portal works with a network of organizations in our community to meet the needs of our families, things that we typically cannot get as a school district. Create Community Studios is working with our buildings to do art education that has a social emotional component to it, so very similar to art therapy, and that is integrated within the school day as well as after school. And our students are both identified through the social worker of children that identify as needing this, and also overall as the class as they push in. So it's really a tier 1 and tier 2 approach here. We are working with Energy for the Common Good to teach some of our students at Page about fusion energy, and those students get to go to Tech Valley to do hands-on learning and are getting ready to present everything that they've done over the past couple of weeks. Girls Incorporated is servicing 60 young ladies from our 5 community schools for after-school programming with a focus on women empowerment and safety. We work with New Choices on prevention programs like parenting and family support. Northern Rivers is going to be working with us on a peer-to-peer program, so they're going to be giving us a worker to work one-on-one directly with their families to help them access the services that they need. So not only connecting them with the services, but they can bring our families to DSS to assist them with filling out that application, which can sometimes be challenging. They can take them physically to apartments to do apartment searches, look and speak with landlords. So working through hand over hand on some of these issues that our families face. We work with SICM for food insecurity. They are doing mobile food pantries at all of our community schools, and they service those schools every other week. So families are receiving about 19 days worth of food by accessing those mobile food pantries. We are working with the Schenectady Rotary Club to focus on the family engagement centers that we have within our schools. We do have small community rooms located in all 5 of our schools, and we're working with them to work on furnishing them and making them more welcoming to our families. We continue to partner with United Way of the Greater Capital Region on different initiatives. They're an amazing resource to help connect us with other resources in the community, and we are going to be working with them for VITA, which is a free tax program for individuals that fall under a certain income requirement. It's a ability to have our families get their taxes done without any hidden fees, and again, in a location that is very familiar to our families. So we will be kicking that off here shortly. And then we also work with the YMCA of Schenectady for some family engagement events called Y Nights. Those are going to be starting up here shortly. And that will be a family engagement once a month amongst all of our community schools, focusing on health, wellness, and different programs that our families identify that they would be interested in.
And of course, as we continue to do this work, we have ongoing needs. Some of those ongoing needs, increased academic and enrichment opportunities. So again, just bringing in some different programming before or after school during the summertime. We have an on-site or mobile clinic providing medical, dental, vision, and mental health care. That's an initiative that we're working on to bring the clinics right to our buildings. As some of you know, our buildings, we don't have much space, so it's hard to provide the clinic piece within the buildings themselves. So bringing a mobile clinic to the locations might be, is the route that we're looking to go. Transportation, again, is an ongoing need. As we can see, the winters aren't easy here, and neither is some of the passage at sometimes. So to provide our kids with safe passage to and from school, and our families as well, it gets difficult sometimes. If you're a family of 3, 4, your mom, you have young children, plus you have a child in school, trying to walk down the sidewalks if they're not shoveled, if they're not plowed, just some of the hazards and the crime in the areas. Creating safe passage and transportation for our kiddos and for their families is one of the, again, an ongoing need. Increased extended learning time, including before and after school weekend programming again, and daycare. We've noticed that, again, sometimes the reason behind a student missing school or missing event doesn't always come down to illnesses. Some just comes down to daycare of other children in the family. Sometimes they have to stay home to watch another family member. Again, a continuing need within the community. Yeah.
And then these next two pages of these slides are an outline of our partners that we work with that sit within our advisory board. Again, as Dr. Cotto had shared, we have about 150 partners on our advisory board at this time, and that number continues to grow. So again, we're a very rich and resource community here. It's just coordinating and organizing the efforts. And then on the last two pages, we have pictures. The first one is from our community schools ribbon cutting that took place on December 21st of this year at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School. And some great pictures from there. And then some pictures from programming and some of the partnerships that we've made where we got 120 coats for our students from Coats for Kids, which was a partnership between MVP and Lodges in Albany. And some pictures from Empire State Youth Orchestra's Saturday programming and from a family engagement event.